Juneteenth is officially a federal holiday in America. Victoria's Secret ditches the angels, and love hate 8 to end the week. Friday Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Friday, June 18th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Good morning.
Happy Friday Talk, my friend. How are you today?
I am good. Happy pre-Father's Day to you.
Oh my God, it is Father's Day this weekend. I completely forgot. Yes. Well, thank you, and happy
all
Father's
the
Day to all
fathers
the dads out there.
Today, by the way, is a national holiday. Federal employees have the day off, although some may not even know it yet. President Biden wasted no time in signing this bill that establishes Juneteenth as a federal holiday, commemorating the end of slavery, calling it one of the greatest honors he'll have as president. The White House says most federal offices will start observing the holiday today, since June 19th technically falls on a Saturday this year. Some school districts are closed. Others are going to close Monday. The stock market is open. The mail will be delivered.
Is it just me, or is it kind of crazy how this went down? I thought for sure he was going to sign this tomorrow on the actual day for it to go into effect next year, but he really just went for it yesterday. What if you're a federal employee and you had today off? Or more importantly, what if you didn't know your kids were going to be off today? I don't know. Maybe I'm being like a curmudgeon about this. I think it's good that this is a federal holiday, as I said yesterday, but how about a little less notice, right? I don't know. I'm still hoping my Freedom Weeks idea catches on. Or, of course, the other option would be to just take off August like Europeans do.
That, I think, is the move. I like that idea of the Freedom Week, though. I think it's a good one.
Right. But I don't mean to take away from the actual the importance of this holiday. I think that it's obviously very important. It'll be a great thing. But I really think it's really crazy how fast this went down without much notice.
And I think it could show you that lawmakers can actually get something done if they want to. So what's their excuse all the other times?
Yeah, good point.
The Supreme Court, by the way, rejecting an opportunity to strike down Obamacare for the third and likely last time. The justices threw out a lawsuit that claimed the health care law was unconstitutional after Congress zeroed out the individual mandate tax, saying it did not have standing. The ruling was 7-2. Some Republicans acknowledging their 11-year fight to throw out the Affordable Care Act in court, probably dead. Democrats see the ruling as a way to build on the law.
You know, the Affordable Care Act, it's really interesting when you think about it, right? It has grown so much more popular in recent years than it was a decade ago. And that's why you're seeing Republican opposition really cooling off, right? After all of those attempts to overturn it in court. So I do think it's probably unlikely there's going to be another major case that makes its way to the Supreme Court. So the law will live, although when Republicans are in Congress, I suspect they will still try and sort of trim it and, death by 1,000 cuts as they did with the individual mandate. But it's a good example of just how things change, how politics change, right? If you think that you know what's going to be the cause du jour today, you're probably wrong. A decade ago, Obamacare was the galvanizing force in Republican politics. It wasn't even mentioned at last year's Republican National Convention.
It's funny you say that, because Obamacare, even the name Obamacare, was supposed to be negative. That's a pejorative kind of term. And then it got so popular that that Obama was talking in the past couple of years. He's like, great, please call it Obamacare. Everyone loves it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I remember somebody said when they were trying to get rid of it under Trump that they were like, just call it Trump Care, and he'll probably be all for it.
On the hurricane beat, the central Gulf Coast under its first tropical storm watch of the season. Louisiana is right in the bullseye of a system that could strengthen into a named tropical storm later today. If and when that happens, the storm is going to be called Claudette. Heavy rain and gusty winds are expected from the Louisiana coast up through Alabama and into northern Georgia over the weekend.
Claudette, not a great hurricane name, I don't think. It doesn't sound, although they never really.
Or something. I like
proper.
The name Claudette. I really do.
It is actually a nice name. It is a nice name. Hurricane season, it just started 2 weeks ago. So I think, you never know, but it looks like this is probably going to be another doozy of a year after last year's record-breaking season. It's just a shame they can't sort of send this rain in the opposite direction towards the drought where they really need it. The Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, they're already soaked. They've had so much rain this spring.
Speaking of that extreme weather, that heat wave still gripping a big part of the country from roughly Texas to California all the way to the West Coast. It's going on nearly a week, so it's just been this really long
Yeah.
heat wave. The National Weather Service in Vegas asking people to stay inside, saying long duration heat waves are deadly. That's in all caps on Twitter. Doctors say the pavement is so hot because it's just not cooling off. There's no no downtime for this thing, that it actually can give people third-degree burns. Wow. And in terms of being unprecedented, a Washington State University climate scientist telling NBC there has never been such severe conditions recorded over such a large area so early in the summer. We're talking 126 degrees in Death Valley, which we know is the hottest point in the U.S., but 116 in Vegas. And it's June still. It's, it's not even like we say these dog days of summer yet.
And the lows in some of these cities, I think the low in Phoenix yesterday was like 94. So to your point about how it just there's not enough time for things to cool off. It just makes me worry so much about the fires. I retweeted a great graphic from a climate journalist that I follow the other day, just showing you the fire situation in terms of just like how many there were last year, visually compared to how many there were in like the 100 years prior in California. It's really remarkable. And it's scary. It really is. I don't know what else to say about it. But just if you're in the Southwest and you're wondering when this heat is going to end, I wish I had better news, but I was just doing a little search of temperatures. It looks like it's not going to actually break in most cities until at least Monday. And even then, it's only going to go down to, the 90s and 100 single-digit hundreds.
So I have thought for a while, as we talk about kind of the big migration of people who are moving out of New York and some of the big cities and moving to Austin or Texas and Florida, if the extreme heat is going to be the one thing that kind of derails it, because everyone moved. Last year wasn't such a crazy hurricane season. So many people moved to Florida. I don't know. I mean, it's just so hot and getting hotter, and you've got such extreme weather. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like if you get a bad hurricane season that just keeps hitting Florida, I wonder if that's going to make people say, it's not worth it. New York, I'll give New York a second look.
I think that, I love California. I have a lot of family in California. I don't know if I would move to California right now. I mean, it's just there's too many risk factors, right? I certainly don't think I would buy property in California. Even though it's it's an amazing state, but it's like, there's so many different risk factors. It's really scary. I honestly don't know, like, where is the best place in America in terms of being protected from climate change? Like,
I've thought about this because I've thought maybe like upstate New York, but some of those rivers, I've covered crazy river flooding up there. I don't know. I don't know where you're most immune to climate change. My guess would be just the further north that you go.
Yeah. Maybe we're all going to Canada before we know.
Just on a lighter note, I cannot believe. So if you're listening to this and not watching, I am wearing so many rollers in my hair that Carlo,
you
I
got
can't
more
even.
Than usual.
I'm just because I keep finding new ones and I just keep adding them. And I thank you for keeping a straight face here, Carlo. I appreciate it.
I honestly, Jill, I don't even notice anymore.
I
feel like when I finally see you in person, I'm going to be like, where are the rollers? No.
The Victoria's Secret Angels are no more. The lingerie giants unveiling the biggest rebranding in its 44-year history, dropping the famous scantily clad supermodels for celebrity endorsers like Megan Rapinoe, Priyanka Chopra Jones. Victoria's Secret undergoing a huge turnaround amid criticism that its brand image had become outdated, something reflected in its sales numbers. There was actually this Mother's Day campaign this year for the first time, a new line for nursing moms, and the company is also rolling out new campaigns featuring a more diverse lineup of models. I mean, it feels like they're a decade or two late here, but I guess better late than never.
Get woke or die trying. The company's new CEO saying, quote, "We need to stop being about what men want and need to be about what women want," end quote, which it seems sort of obvious for a company that sells women's underwear. Was there a time when men were doing like their wives' underwear shopping? I don't know. I guess I didn't really understand what the genesis of like the Victoria's Secret brand was to begin with. I don't know. I think that, look, more power to them, but I was just thinking about this a little bit yesterday when this was sort of coming across. Everybody does this now, right? These inclusive sort of ad campaigns and like diversity, which is great. But I'm not an ad executive, obviously, so I don't, take what I say with a grain of salt. But it's like the point of advertising and marketing is to sort of do some, catch people's eye by being different. It's like if everyone's doing it, then it doesn't seem like you're really making much of a statement. I remember 10 or 12 years ago now, Dove, the lotion soap brand, they really did do something new because they came out with that ad, that one of, I think, the first major ad campaigns without retouching the models, with a much more inclusive lineup of models. And that really did make an impact on people. But I think now that like it's sort of the way that women's advertising is now, I don't know. I'm a guy, so like I don't really know this stuff.
I think it's all going to be about the quality of the products. If this new line for nursing women is good, it'll be a smashing success because we need that. There's just not enough good products for nursing women. And likewise, with whatever they make, I think if the product is good, I think it'll work. So I'm willing to give it a shot. Victoria's Secret, by the way, is pretty expensive. They're not cheap bras and underwear. So. And
also they're known, from what I've read at least, as not being particularly good on quality. So I think that will be, if they can actually get their quality up, like you said, that'll be a big thing.
Okay, let's talk a little streaming. We say streaming wars, but it's actually more like streaming versus cable. Despite the focus on streaming, the majority of time that people spend watching TV, turns out, is still the old-fashioned way, through cable and broadcast networks. And this is according to a new ratings metric from Nielsen. The research company saying that it now can directly measure how many households are streaming content to their TVs versus watching through a cable box or an antenna. And this is the first time that there's going to be this apples to apples comparison between the two. We've never really had this information before, which is kind of wild.
One of the dirty little secrets of sort of streaming TV is that you'd think that just by virtue of it being associated with the internet, that you would have these like really good metrics about who's watching, the demographics. But the fact is, there isn't, for whatever reason. And I think this is a big deal, at least in our industry, in terms of being able to better gauge who the audience is on these streaming platforms. But look at this from this same Nielsen report. Netflix and YouTube together make up half of all streaming minutes in the US, just absolutely dominating the competition. But they still only account for, all of streaming only accounts for about 26% of the time that TVs are in use. That was really surprising to me. I thought it would have been, I knew that it wasn't a majority yet, but I thought that it definitely would have been closer to like 40 or 50%. But it just shows, most people are still turning on their cable box, watching their shows as they come on, maybe DVRing a couple, but they're not doing it the way that a lot of, I think, younger people are, or at least people in sort of our milieu, where it's like you find the show that you want on one of the streaming platforms, you watch it at your convenience. That's still relatively new.
So buried in the data were numbers that show streaming is growing by about 6% a year. Reed Hastings, CEO of Netflix, he said, at that rate, it's not going to be all that much longer until streaming overtakes cable. The other point that Brian Stelter made this morning in his Reliable Sources newsletter that I thought was pretty interesting, streaming is probably more active watching, whereas cable or network TV may be more passive, because streaming, you're actively putting something on. You have to like search for it. It's not appointment viewing per se. Whereas cable, you might just have it on in the background, and you want to get up with the Today Show or wake up with Cheddar or whatever, and you put it on, and it's like that just becomes kind of the background noise. But I was surprised.
Jill, No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go. I had nothing.
No, I was just.
I was tapped out of ideas.
Sorry. I was just saying, and I think I may have mentioned this before, but I remember at NBC once they had one of like the big executives, like the audience executives come in, and they were talking to some of the younger employees, and I always remember what this person said. It stuck with me, that they were like, the network TV, when you look at network TV ratings, you have to shave off a certain like point or so based on just how many people have like NBC on, but are either asleep or not in or not in the house, or in some cases like dead.
Right.
Seriously, right? Like there's just some measure of it is not accurate because so many people just like leave their TVs on and go about their day. I always thought that was interesting.
Okay, so when I was at my first on-air job in Lansing, Michigan, I remember the news director, we would always review all the shows. It was sort of like a learning station in a lot of ways. And he would talk about when you're writing stories and packages for TV, they have to be so good and clear and concise and just effective, because you have to pretend that who's ever watching it is literally making breakfast,
Yeah, right.
watching their kids, potentially on the phone, all while your program is running. So it has to be something that really stands out to them, or else it's like it's lost anyway. And I've always thought of that. That's why you have to start with that good video and nothing confusing in the copy. It's just a totally different experience. And you could say when you're doing streaming video, you're actually thinking, okay, I want to watch the next episode in Handmaid's Tale or whatever it may be that you're watching.
Yeah, if you ever wonder why they send Al Roker to the biggest hurricanes and have him like blowing away there, it's not because he needs to be there. It's because it's an amazing visual, right?
Look, weather events are the thing that people turn to TV for. It's
Always.
something newspapers cannot replicate, that podcasts cannot replicate. By the way, it's also, when we talk about data, we have a hard time finding out how many people even listen to our podcast. It's just the data. That tech companies have, it's so tight knit.
They hold on to it.
They don't want to give up the
out.
information.
Yeah.
And at least now Nielsen's getting into the game, so we'll have a better understanding.
It's also, and I know we're going on this too long, but one of the things why this is going to be good is because Netflix and these companies, they always say like, this many people watch this new show, but you don't have any idea what that means, right? It could mean that you watched it for 2 seconds. Like if you have an actual third party doing this, it'll be more useful.
Okay, Wimbledon returns later this month after missing last year, but the tournament's going to be without 2 of its biggest stars. Naomi Osaka on the women's side confirming that she is sitting out after doing the same for the French Open. She said she's still planning to play, though, in the Olympics. Rafael Nadal pulling out of both events, saying that he is listening to his body in order to prolong his career.
What was your take on the Naomi Osaka pulling out of the French Open? That happened when I was out.
You know what?
Remember?
Take on, yeah, of course. My take on it is that I think it was a fail for tennis and a fail for the French Open. I mean, she basically was saying she was having mental health issues and wanted to skip doing the press. And the French Open, their argument, which I kind of got, which was we have to treat all the players equally. So we can't subject some players to the press and not you. But I mean, there's tons of shades of gray in between there. I mean, why couldn't they have said to her, like, how are you doing? What's going on? Tell where, how are you feeling? How can we work through this? How can we better, you still need to communicate with fans or answer some questions, but how about if you do it written, or I don't know. There was just a million other ways to handle it without, mental health is a real thing.
Sure.
And it was just a loss for tennis. I think it was just handled so poorly by the French Open. And good for her for taking some time off. The Olympics, she's going to be playing, in front of her home fans in Japan. So hopefully that'll be a little rejuvenate. Hopefully she'll take this time, take a break, and be rejuvenated there. But yeah, I guess that's my take on it. It's like it did not have to be that way. The way that it ended with her pulling out of the tournament, I feel like was just so unnecessary.
I say this knowing that I'm going to take heat for it, but my reaction when that happened, and I remember reading the story while we were in the hospital, and I was just like, look, mental health, I know better, I think, than many people how serious it is. But whatever happened to like grit and perseverance in professional sports? I mean, yeah, talking to the media, like it probably sucks, right? But there's a lot of parts of your job that suck, right? I happen to really like this part of my job, Jill. talking to you every morning, but there's parts of my day that suck. I'm sure there's parts of your day that suck too. That's called being an adult in the world. I mean, she should do whatever she has to do to take care of herself. But like, I just remember when I was reading the story, I thought about Michael Jordan playing and winning in the finals when he had the flu. I think about Monica Seles being stabbed on the court and then coming back a year later to play. There's something to be said about perseverance, especially when it comes to pro sports. So I'll get off my soapbox on that.
No, I get that, but I think that she's professionally this is the height of her career.
Right.
These are tournaments that she potentially could have won that won't now be under her belt. So, if you want to be the greatest in terms of the sport, that is part of it. So her career could potentially,
Right.
Look, you could argue that she's going to actually do the best thing for her career because she wasn't in the mental state to be playing, but she could have won the French Open and Wimbledon for that matter. She's just crushing it in terms of tennis. So her career will take a hit.
But maybe there's something, maybe it's more
saying.
than the press. It was definitely framed as sort of like she was doing it because she didn't want to talk to the press. Maybe there was more to it. Just also in sports, before we move on, we got the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines this weekend. It's the first time it's been played there since Tiger Woods won in epic fashion in 2008. There's also 3 excellent NBA series in their Game 6s and 7s this weekend. So a lot of good sports.
And attention all parents, Pixar's newest flick, Luca, drops on Disney Plus today. The animated film follows a sea monster and his adventures along the Italian Riviera. The reviews are excellent, with the New York Times calling it the kind of movie, quote, that will turn adult viewers into bawling, trembling wrecks. And to that, I was reading in the newsletter last night. Is that what we want? Is that a good thing? Do we want to be bawling, trembling wrecks? I don't know.
Did you ever see Inside Out? Do you remember that one?
Okay, I put it on over the weekend, and my brother and my sister-in-law were over with their kids, and my brother was like, "Oh, you're going to be crying the whole time." He's like, "This one's going to get you." So we wound up not watching it, but I've heard it's similar.
It's
Waterworks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about when I read this last night, because it's just like I watched a movie with my brother, also named Luca, by the way, and my dad, and we were all like crying in the theater. But yeah, this movie looks good. Disney Plus, by the way, America's most reliable babysitter, right?
It really is. We're on the Moana kick right now. That's
like
getting
Moana.
us through. Moana's
Moana.
It's so good.
It's really good.
I think Lin-Manuel Miranda was a part of writing a lot of it with the lyrics. They're just it's great.
I saw In the Heights the other night. I thought it was excellent. Wasn't there a big kerfuffle about In the Heights? Yeah, it's really good.
The only thing about In the Heights was that it just didn't do as well at the box office as was expected. But it's also on HBO Max.
Right.
So.
It's not surprising.
Let's do a little love, hate, 8, Carlo.
Okay, guys, one thing that we love, making 2 trips. This is a personal Carlo life hack that I am revealing to you all today. Just this goes for groceries, packages, children, whatever it is. Instead of trying to get everything in one trip, acknowledge early on that it's just going to require a second trip. And stop worrying how you're going to pull it off, and just say, this is going to be 2 trips. And I guarantee you, it will just give you a much more zen outlook about life.
I need that. I'm thinking about how many times I used to live near a Whole Foods, and I used to walk with 17 bags piled up on the city streets across blocks. And
yes.
You're right. Had I just thought, go back for it, you'll be okay. Yeah.
This is especially true in New York City because a lot of people don't have cars, and you can't just throw everything in your trunk. But it goes for everything. Just make the second trip. You'll feel better.
Okay, one thing that we hate, summer colds. Is it allergies, COVID, heat stroke? And shouldn't it just be illegal to be sick when it's so nice out?
Yeah, here. Weren't we just talking about how we weren't getting sick?
My daughter has a cold, and we're like, is it cold? Is it an allergy? It's just...
Yeah, it's everything. Okay, and finally, one thing that we ate, barbecue chips, the best potato chips. This is the GOAT. Then there's barbecue chips, and then there's everybody else when it comes to the potato chip game, I think.
Okay, that's an interesting take there, Carlo.
It doesn't matter. Ruffles, the kind where they're kettle cooked or whatever it is, barbecue chips, they never disappoint.
Okay, that is what you need to know for Friday, June 18th. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.